Welcome to the panel, where two bootstrappers talk about building a better business and a better life. I'm Justin Jackson, co-founder of Transistor.fm.
I'm Brian Castle. I am building Builder Methods.
This week, we'll probably focus, we'll at least start off over on my side of the pie. Last week we had, if you haven't listened to that episode, I thought it was a really good episode where we went through all of Brian's different projects, all of his different bets, and assigned it like icons for different things, like amount of revenue, time investment,
amount of shovels, amount of batteries.
Yep. The shovel one is interesting because it's like, how much foundational, groundbreaking work am I doing? I think it's going to be interesting to contrast those.
I think it's a really great, I don't want to call it formula or framework. It's maybe the start of some sort of framework or thing, but I think it's a really cool game or thing that we can turn to anyone, really. Let's turn it on you today. You know?
Yeah, we should vibe code this thing up so people can do it themselves.
I
think we got to start with a spicy email client chat, though, because you recently switched your email provider.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth talking about because I'm someone who tried out hey.com, and I couldn't make it work for myself for a variety of reasons. So I'm curious kind of where you ended up.
This is one of those, and by the way, I decided to make this change while I was on a road trip vacation last week down at the Outer Banks. And so it's like I don't have enough things to do. But
yeah.
Anyway, I'm back home now. Email is, it could be the most used app out of all tools that any of us ever touch all day, right?
Yep.
For me, it's probably like email and like Cursor right now. Those two are probably the top two. And email even more because it's also on my phone and everything, right?
It's the killer app. It's
and it's not going away. Nothing will ever kill email. I hate it when people try to say that like, oh, Slack is going to kill. No, like I stay away from that shit. It's email is here to stay.
There was a time for the millennial generation where Facebook was looking to disrupt email. They said millennials don't use email. They only use Facebook. And so Facebook, you could get a @facebook.com email address. I don't know if you remember this. And it connected to Messenger. So they had, they were going to try to disrupt all of email and messaging and bring it all inside of Facebook.
I just don't know how people and so many people live that way today, even professionals in our industry. Like, so I just started working with a consulting client and they want to invite me into their Slack. And that's just like, no, like I don't. I always just say like, no, if we're working together, I'm not joining your Slack.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Like, no way. I have a Slack for me and my team. Because I can't get requests and messages from that. Like I never make myself available for live chat at all. Right. And even if I'm in the Slack and I'm not even checking it on a regular basis, then there's going to be like questions and requests that I have to like sift through and find, and I have to log and I have to process them and make sure I get back to this and that, but that one's threaded over there. Like it's chaos, right? I don't know why most people can't handle an inbox. Just work through an inbox. People send you stuff. It's okay if it takes you a few days to get back, but like it's in an inbox. You'll get to it. That's how I think of things, right? So same thing with Clarityflow. Like we get a lot of questions from people on Clarityflow, like customers on Clarityflow who are like, how do I handle all these messages that are coming through?
Yeah.
And like, we have a notifications menu and everything inside Clarityflow. We've got unread markers and things like that. But to me, I use Clarityflow every single day and I use it with my email. I get an email notification of a new message and it's unread until I see it. Like it's the perfect queue of messages for me to get through,
Yeah. Are you an inbox zero person? Are you just reading and archiving everything? What's your approach?
I think so. I guess so. I pretty rarely actually get to zero. I shouldn't say that. I actually do get to 0% pretty regularly, but I get a lot of noise in my inbox, right? And that's the big driver for why I switched email clients. I mean,
you were using Hey. What wasn't working?
I've been using Gmail for like 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And for both personal, I have a personal Gmail, and then I have a work email, which is just like at briancastle.com. And like all of my company emails sort of forward to my one work email, right? Like,
yeah.
And so personal and work, 2 inboxes, right? I really never mix like friends and family with like work emails. I don't do that. So about 6 months ago, I gave Hey a solid try. Like at first it didn't click with me either. Maybe a year ago. And I was like, this is just too weird and different.
Yeah.
So it didn't click, but then I did come back to it when I just got so fed up with the noise and the spam. And I mean, I really do think that what Hey has done with what do they call it? The filter thing.
Yeah, where you can screener.
Yeah.
Screener, yeah.
Like that is pretty brilliant in my view. I think like, and it literally like overnight like quieted down my email, right?
Yeah, the screener is basically this thing in your inbox where you can say, hey, there's someone that wants to get into your inbox. Do you want to let them in? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Yeah. And I don't know if
and then I also like their concept of like the paper trail and and they also have like newsletters. One thing that I found was that like I never read newsletters anymore because they would always get thrown into the newsletters bin, which is never in my view.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was like, I actually got into Hey for about 6 months. One thing that was kind of a bummer was that like, it's an alternative to Gmail. So like, there's like a 6-month hole in my Gmail history now.
There's a few things that I found difficult. One is that email archive from 2005 or whatever that I have that I can search it and find.
It's so valuable to have that search.
It's so helpful. And then the other thing, the way that Hey dealt with calendar events, I found challenging because
I never used Hey Calendar,
yeah, but every time you get a calendar invite, did you have to copy it over manually into your calendar?
No, because I just use, I guess what did I do? I still use Google's calendar system.
Yeah. At the time when I was trying it, it was not like when you get a calendar invite in Gmail, there's a button right in the inbox of like, yes, no, maybe.
I don't get a lot of like invites I get calendar events that just get created, but I don't get like invited to stuff that I have to respond to too much.
Yeah, I found that really, really a struggle.
But anyway, what happened in the past week was like even the noise in Hey started to get a little out of control. The main difference was I've been promoting my new newsletter, Builder Methods.
Yeah.
And it has like a new autoresponder. So anytime someone gets on the list, they're like, I really encourage them to hit reply and tell me what you're building, right? And I also have some surveys right now about my upcoming courses on Claude Code and stuff like that. So I'm getting a lot of responses to these things every day, and every single one of those gets screened out by Hey. So, because it's like a new email address coming back to me, right?
Yeah.
So it was like every day I'm getting these responses plus my like real emails day to day, right?
Yeah.
So that started to get, and I was like, if this is going to continue, and I'm trying to make it continue with the newsletter and everything, like the Hey is just not going to really work for me. And the other thing that like I don't like how Hey is, they're just very limited on their filtering abilities. You can only filter based on an email address. You can't say like, if the subject line contains this string, then put them over here, right?
Yeah, we use a ton of those at Transistor. Like we get all these notifications from Spotify and Apple, and they just get filtered basically automatically.
Yeah. So I tried a bunch of different tools. I ended up landing on one called Shortwave. I want to go on one quick rant about Superhuman.
Let's do it.
everyone seems to either really love Superhuman or they just don't use them or whatever.
Yeah.
I just remember I had like a really bad experience with them when they were brand new, when they launched, like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
They were like the new hotness, right? Like everyone was like, oh, you got to check out this brand new thing called Superhuman.
There was tons of FOMO around it. You had to like get on a waiting list. They had to like give you a phone call and talk to you.
That's exactly what happened. I got on that phone call as one of the, early people in that first month or two, like invited to a call to go to their personal onboarding flow, right? And like they ended up like charging my credit card like there on the call without me really knowing it.
Okay.
They're like, it was a really awkward thing where they're trying to show me a demo of Superhuman and they're like, look, and now this is you receiving a receipt from Superhuman. And I'm like, oh, so did you just charge me? That's not cool.
Surprise.
Yeah. And I remember that being it was like this like young like sales rep person who was just like, just trying to get through like 100 of these calls a day. And like, and I was just like, the whole fact that I even had to be on a call just annoyed me. And so I had this like bad taste in my mouth then. I ended up canceling it and getting a refund then, right? So that was like 6 years ago. And then I come back to try Superhuman now because, I'm trying all these different tools. And then I sign up and it doesn't work. Like the Gmail thing broke, the Gmail integration broke. So I paid to use it again now, and then I can't even start using it at all
because it's just not working.
So then I'm contacting their support. Like 2 days go by, no response. The only way for me to actually get to someone is like a DM on Twitter. It's like, guys,
that's super frustrating.
Like,
So
anyway,
so you had not a great experience with them, and then so what was it about Shortwave that
Shortwave? I haven't really been familiar with them. I don't know. I must have been Googling. Actually, I think I found them through a ChatGPT recommendation.
No way.
I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. I was asking ChatGPT for like power tools around Gmail and stuff, and recommended that. I Googled it, checked it out, and I really like it. It's definitely a Superhuman competitor. They do things a little bit differently and better and a little bit more customizable, a little bit more like a lot of the things that it does all the same things that Superhuman does, but Shortwave, I think, is just more comfortable, I want to say.
Okay.
They have some pretty cool, you can do some pretty cool filtering. You can do like inbox splits, which I really like. So I can put audience replies over here, and I could put like regular business emails over here. I could filter out the noise in pretty much the same way that Hey did it. But then you have these like AI filters to say like you could put a prompt in that says like, hey, if an email sort of looks like this and maybe sounds like it's one of those, then filter it this way, which is a little bit hit and miss, but
okay.
Yeah.
So you've moved to this.
What I'm on now. Yeah. They've been really great on support. I've been in touch with them with some questions and really fast and good to work with.
So why not go back to Gmail?
Well, the other nice thing about this is that it syncs with Gmail.
Okay.
So I have my whole Gmail history in there, and it works with my Gmail labels and stuff like that.
Okay. So this is like something you add on top of Gmail.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm really curious for anyone listening, and then for those of you watching live, I'm really curious how you do email. I am very much a person who's like in my inbox and I'm just reading and archiving. So like in this case, I've got 3 emails here. Bang. I'm done. No, none of the, does anybody use those Gmail smart folders? Do people like those? I don't like those.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is that like, I have sort of those folders set up in Shortwave, but they're customizable and Gmails are not. Oh,
I see. So you've got some smarter folder stuff. Yeah, I just found like basically like with a newsletter or whatever, I just need to either read it and then I'll use Readwise to save articles I want to read later. But if I don't read it right then, it's not going to happen. So I just go through it. I'm not, and I try to keep my inbox kind of like this, just process it and,
I literally just spent the past week like kind of reorganizing how I deal with email. So I've got like my primary inbox, which are like which I'm trying to set up filters so that it's only actually important emails from people I'm working with, or if it's my personal email, it's like friends and family and stuff like that. And then I have a inbox split for newsletters. And that's just a few newsletters that I really care about reading.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the difference between Hey, like literally the whole time I was on Hey for 6 months, I just never read a newsletter.
Yeah.
I never even saw them.
I found something similar. As soon as they got filtered out, it was like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. And so I've got a handful of newsletters that I want to pay attention to. And then I have a category called noise. So everything else, like just random updates from apps, promotional emails, like all that stuff just goes into noise. And I could still like go there and just glance through it and see if anything is important.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I can just like one click, like archive it all.
Yeah.
And then I also have like one more category just for like receipts. And I named it Paper Trail, same thing as Hey does it. So it's like anything sort of important, like a booking confirmation or a receipt. Like it's filtered with like a smart like subject line. If it includes the word receipt, like throw it in there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That paper trail idea, there's lots of great ideas in Hey. And yeah, paper trail was one of them that was interesting. I'm trying to even think of how I get in that. Oh yeah, paper trail. So then you could just say anything from this address is a receipt. Which again, these filters are always tricky because now I'm looking in here. It at one point decided anything from Stripe was a receipt, but then any payment notifications I got also went in there. So
you can really start to tweak that stuff with the rules in Shortwave, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm also using Gmail's like categorization, right? So you could say like, if Gmail thinks that this is a promotional email,
okay,
then throw it over here, except if it's from these email addresses.
Interesting.
Except if the subject has this string in it, you know, like I could start to do things like that, you know?
Okay. I think we're going to need an update on this as we go along. How's that working for you? If it delivers on the promise, but right. It looks cool.
I want to get into our matrix for Justin's world over here.
Yeah. Let's talk matrix. So last episode, we did a, we came up with this, like these boxes that I was drawing while we were chatting. And if you're listening to this at home, there will be a link in the show notes to these. But basically, you had 4 big boxes: consulting, clarity flow, instrumental components, and builder methods. And then we just kind of went through and I said, okay, which are you making the most money from? Which do you invest the most time in? Which are you doing kind of the most foundational work? And we put a shovel as the icon for that. So like, where are you kind of breaking ground? It takes a lot of energy. And then we also had this idea of like, which of these gives you energy and which drains your battery. And then we categorize them, like which is most important to you in terms of your focus. And so right now for you, it's builder methods. I think mine is very different. It just shows I'm just at a different stage. So yeah. I came up with this right here. So I've got in my boxes transistor.fm.
Yeah. First, let's just define the boxes. All right. So Transistor.
Yep.
And then
Podcast Standards Project.
Okay.
Personal brand / mega maker, I put in another box. And then Holdco investments, I put in another box. Okay.
By the way, all right, so I sort of know what the first 3. Tell me about your investments. Like what goes into that right now?
So I have a little fund that, basically profits from other businesses go into this fund, and I was finally doing well enough that after I paid my family's expenses, there was some left over. It's not a ton of money, but it's enough that I can start investing it. So,
have you?
Yeah, I invested some money in Rev Gems, which already hasn't worked out. So that was one investment that I had to write off. But it felt like a reasonable bet at the time. I invested a a bigger check in a company that does. It's a box that sits on power lines, and then it uses AI to determine whether or not there's going to be a fault or an electrical event, you know? And I knew that guy locally. He built another company that did really well, and I just trust him, and it felt like a reasonable bet. And then there might be a few other things in there, and I'll probably use it if I ever invest in real estate or something like that.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Yeah, that's just like if there's an interesting opportunity.
Yeah.
That I kind of use that.
Like it.
So,
all right. So, tell me about the podcast standards project.
Yeah. So
for those who don't know what it is.
Yeah. So it's a organization that a bunch of us started in the podcast industry. It was really a response to all the centralized platforms that are in podcasting, and how can we keep the open ecosystem thriving? How can we keep the RSS standard fresh? How can we innovate on top of RSS? How can we advocate and connect with some of these bigger platforms like Apple Podcasts as a group instead of individually? And also, how can we just have a bigger brain trust of people, all of smart people outside of our tiny little companies? How can we expand that pool of smart people that are collaborating on open standards inside of podcasting?
Very cool. When did that start, and like who all is in on it? It
started in 2023. We had a dinner at a podcast conference, and we have all the people that were originally there. It was all sorts of folks. It was Dan Benjamin, founder of 5x5. It was Adam Curry, who's a lot of people call the godfather of podcasting, or the podfather. A lot of us from different podcast hosting companies. And we were kind of basing it off the idea of like the Web Standards Project, back when Internet Explorer was kind of just writing their own specs, and there was a real need to standardize on what's going to load in a web browser. And so, we've been working on this, and I've taken a much more active role in it. And I think I talked about last time, the thing we're really exploring right now is this idea of how can we offer video in the open podcast ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So I put it as a separate box because it's like
a separate entity from
Transistor. And it really does. It's taking up a lot of my time and focus right now. And I gave it a lot of shovels because it's a lot of breaking ground kind of work. Like, how are we going to make this a thing? How are we going to organize ourselves? How are we going to,
Yeah. So, all right. I want to ask you questions about the shovels and the time and the money on all of them. Mm-hmm. What time frame are we looking at here? Like, are you defining this stuff as like all of 2025 or just this month or this quarter?
Yeah, it's this moment. This is a snapshot of kind of my focuses as of this moment professionally.
Okay. All right. And how far, I guess it might be different for each one, right? So why don't we start with time, right? So
it
looks like you are actually I would say you are spending the most time in Transistor and almost the most in the podcast standards project. I'm kind of curious to know, like, Transistor, obviously it's a pretty established SaaS. I know you guys are a small team, so you all do a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. What does your time look like on Transistor? What are you doing every day?
I mean, for me, it's just a big bucket of different things. So like our payroll software stopped working 2 weeks ago. So I've been like working with John on getting a fix for that. We just changed our corporate address. We're changing. So there's like a lot of administrative things. We need to do annual reviews with all of our employees. We have a stock options program that needs to be maintained. So there's like an administrative component. Mm-hmm. There's marketing and growth. There's leadership.
Is that all you, or is somebody else doing marketing stuff too?
So that's primarily Josh and I.
Okay.
But Josh is mostly like working on the website. So he's like, it's like, okay, we've got a new, for example, I can give you a little sneak peek at something where we have, we want to build a new feature page for our customer support. And so him and I just kind of sketch up some ideas, and then he will go out and start building that out in Statamic, and then we'll go back and forth on that. So he's way more on we'll do a call together, and we'll kind of like outline, okay, here's kind of what we're thinking, and here's what we want to go, here's what we want to write. And he'll do a first draft, and then we'll iterate on that together.
I want to dig in on that for a second. So like, that's like a creative project that's probably long-term, and you probably have many of these that come up throughout the year. And so how much is like Josh, and I know Josh a bit, I know he's like super talented. He's one of these like sort of full stack designer, developer, marketer kind of guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how much is it like him driving the project and driving his ideas and then like showing to you for feedback? And how much is it like Justin has this vision and these ideas and Josh is helping to like build it? Or is it a bit of both?
I mean, it's pretty collaborative. I think during our calls, I'm really kind of identifying like, here's the vision, here's kind of what we want to achieve, and here's some ideas for like, different feature sections. But then he's going to take that and he'll have all sorts of his own creative ideas. So he'll take it from a rough marker sketch to something more established, but then we'll work together on refining that. And then he'll go back to his little workshop and he'll figure that out.
Yeah.
So like a good example would be, I think we have one of the most customized Statamic sites I've seen. We've got a lot of different content areas. And for something like, I don't know, like for AI transcription, we would have collaborated a bunch on this whole layout. Like, what's this going to look like? What do we want to have in each section? But then he'll have ideas on, okay, maybe we should put this here, organize it this way. So
like in terms of your time, there's like a call or two a week. I'm sure you're probably writing a lot of this copy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he'll write based on our outline. He'll write some initial copy, and then I'll come in, and in those cases, I'll probably just collaborate right in code. I'll be issuing pull requests for that thing there.
Cool.
So it's a real mixed bag for me. And then a lot of it, I'm making videos, I'm doing PR, and
then also, like, how often are you doing just meetings in general with your team?
So we have a Thursday meeting every week, and that's our main staff meeting. And then I'll try to do like one-on-ones with people. It's like Josh and I will have a call probably on average every 2-3 weeks. Helen and I will do a call probably about in the same every 2-3 weeks. So I'm doing at least kind of maybe 1 or 2 one-on-one calls every week, but they're not daily for sure. And that seems to be, it's hard. I think everyone can benefit from more calls actually on a remote team because, you're disconnected, but in practice, like in terms of getting work done, doing it feels like every 2-3 weeks is a good cadence.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of SaaS teams who have like SaaS businesses like yours, I feel like most of them look like yours, which is like, it's usually a partnership and then a small team of designers, developers, marketers, support. And then there are sort of like regular actual meetings, like Zoom calls and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been like literally 100% async all the time with everyone I ever work with. It's just a totally different dynamic, but it's also because my businesses have been structured very differently over the years than most people I know, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty much a solo person who just hires people to like help execute stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for better or worse, I sometimes I feel like I miss out on some of that like company culture, relationship building.
Yeah.
But other times I'm like, man, I love not having a calendar full of meetings.
You know what? I've realized in some ways remote work really sucks. I think I remember Ben Ornstein talking about this, about how he really wanted to be in the office with people at Tuple. And part of me was like, come on, like remote's so great. We can all live wherever we want. We have all this flexibility. You know, in our team, people are going to exercise throughout the day on their own schedule, and they can kind of organize themselves the way they want. That being said, like Michael is our customer support person with Helen, and he lives in this town. And every once in a while, he'll stop by the office or he'll work from this co-working place here. And just getting to, even going out for lunch with somebody that you're working with and getting to talk about things face to face is significantly better than being on a Zoom call. And I think way better than being in a Slack chat.
I do think that that's the thing that this younger generation in our industry is totally missing out on.
Yeah.
And it's going to just keep getting worse now.
Yeah.
I mean, that, like, just looking back on the earliest years of my career when I was 25 years old, I was working at a web agency in New York City, and in the office, and there was a small team, like 20 people.
Yep.
Open air office. So literally I learned CSS from the guy who sat next to me for 2 years, you know?
Yeah.
And also like just talked about like music and we went out to concerts together in NYC and like, it was such a huge professional learning experience being in person with those people.
Yeah.
And I valued it back then as a 20 something solo, like not like single, doesn't have a family.
Yeah.
Like now I really value like async freedom, like, you know, control my schedule. But
this is my new framework for tech work is, I think for a while I was thinking everybody should be remote first. Remote is the best. And I think I've changed my mind. I think when you're in your 20s, in person in a big city is where you want to be. So if you've just graduated, there's some people that just graduated from comp sci programs here. This town is not big enough for you to start your career, especially now that things have gotten so competitive for remote jobs and we're in kind of a hiring slump, and definitely a hiring slump for juniors. I think if you're a young person, move to a big city, start going to every meetup, start meeting everybody, put your name out there, and try to get a job working for a company there. And then as you get older and you get more experience and you have more leverage, that's when you try to get your remote job. And remote jobs are really, I think, the most beneficial for people with families. It's like, then you can pick a more affordable place to live. You have more flexibility.
I mean, I think that these, like the modern day version is like most companies are remote, no matter how old you are. It's just that if you're younger, you can go work in a co-working space in a city. Yeah. And like you can get that sort of networking vibe or in office vibe. And it doesn't have to be other people who work at your company, because they probably all work at different companies remotely. Yeah. But if you could just get together and hang, you know, like that's super valuable. But it's also something that's just not interesting to me now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing, is that a lot of us who kind of grew up in this industry were like, you know, once I had kids, I was like, I got to get rid of this commute. That's what pushed me into entrepreneurship. And like, well, I was always interested in entrepreneurship, but that's what really made me push towards it again, is working at a job in a big city and having kids, because the kids often forces you to move out to the suburbs, and then you have a commute, and then it's like, you just hate your life. And so
and I did that for like a year or two, commuting into the New York City, like 2 hours a day, which sucked. But happy those days are over. Okay, let's get back to our matrix here. We got Transistor, so that's obviously taken up most of your time.
Yeah.
Can you pull it back up?
Yeah, I'll bring it back up here. So Transistor's most of my time. That's where most of my money gets made. And there's still some foundational breaking groundwork I'm doing here, but
Yeah, like, okay, so like the video project that you were talking about last time a little bit, which is like a new like video podcasting technology sort of push.
Yeah.
I would have expected to see maybe more shovels on that, or maybe I'm missing something.
I mean, the shovels are kind of happening all over here in the podcast standards project, because that's where we're really trying to define the spec, trying to decide how we're going to solve some really big issues. Like how are we going to do measurement for this? Like how are we going to measure what a stream is if we're using some of this new technology? How are we going to pay for it? Like the bandwidth costs and all that stuff. We're trying to figure that out as a group. There's some of that then gets pulled into Transistor.
Yeah, so it's like the standard spec, talk about that with the standards project, but then like how does this also become a Transistor feature?
That's right. Yeah. And like foundational work to me, like that shovels in the groundwork is like breaking ground. It's the beginning of the company was like that, when we were like just trying to create our own space in the world and carve out our own little piece of the pie and building relationships and working nights and weekends and trying to figure out how to make this all work and answering every support ticket. That's all groundwork. But I would say the groundwork on Transistor is basically done, unless we decided to launch a significant new feature, like or new business
or new.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
And then I've got personal brand Mega Maker and my courses and some other.
Yeah. So like for people listening who aren't viewing, your personal Mega Maker stuff, you've got like $1, one clock, and one shovel.
Yeah.
And it's so like that just seems like the least activity on all categories.
Yeah, it's kind of like I still want to keep it active. I still want to be publishing videos to my personal YouTube. I still want to have my own personal podcast, my personal blog.
See, okay, I don't know if I totally buy your emojis here.
Like maybe I've got more time. I'm actually spending more time.
Yes. Like, because I'm seeing, first of all, we do this panel podcast. I guess that probably falls into that category, right? And then you have like your weekly newsletter, which you do it pretty much every week, or you pretty rarely skip a week, as far as I could tell.
It's kind of, it's not on a super great schedule, but I'd say
it's way more than mine. Like that's for sure. And then you also do YouTube videos, and I know absolutely firsthand, like that takes so much time.
Yeah. I mean, the lines get blurred with a lot of this stuff. So like, for example, the panel podcast I put under Transistor, because one of the goals for the show for me was I got to get back in the habit of creating as a creator, so that I know what I can get in the customer's mindset.
Be a podcaster if you're selling to podcasters.
That's right.
Yep.
So there's probably maybe more than one clock here. That's fair. And I'm still in the Mega Maker Slack, and we still have people signing up, and it's still. I just Ryan Hefner here in the chat just signed up actually, so it's still going.
The other thing that I'm always like jealous of folks like you is that like even though you have these different boxes, they are all connected and they all feed each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like the work that you do on the personal stuff and on the podcast standard stuff, like that feeds Transistor. Like it's all, it could all be the same box technically.
Yeah.
But,
there's some overlap for sure.
It's not the divided attention where like if you're giving attention to one thing, it comes at the expense of the other. And instead it's like you can do attention over here and it actually helps the other.
Yeah, I think. And in terms of energy, like if I was going to put like some, like where do I get energy right now? I think the one thing that creates energy for me is like I could be working on something in my a personal project, but it could, first of all, it could just inspire me to do something over in Transistor. But often it just leads into, oh, we should apply this at Transistor, or we should try this, or we should do this. Podcast Standards Project has given me so much creative energy for Transistor, because it feels like it's just brought a whole new layer of purpose and meaning to what we're trying to do. Like we're not just building a company. We're trying to change the culture. We're trying to expand the open podcast ecosystem. We're trying to stand up to big mega corporations and work collaboratively with all these smart people across the industry. That gives me a lot of energy. And then as you know, all of this stuff makes money, it can go into this holdco where I can then make investments and.
Yeah. So now that one, I see the $1 sign one time. See, and so you have 3 shovels. So like, what's the work that's happening there?
The work there is just like, it's still breaking ground. It's like, I'm trying to figure out what this thing is going to do. What's it going to be? If any new thing I try to get into, like if it's real estate, that's going to just require a bunch of kind of groundwork that I haven't done. It's still, I mean, and even just to get this thing set up was a bunch of administrative work. And, so
when did all that come together for you?
I started working on that maybe 1.5 years ago and kind of went to Laracon last summer with this thought of, I'm going to start making bets. And, even that little project that Ferdinand and I built, Swag Fan, was kind of like in this bucket. Like, let's just start deploying some capital,
just little seeds, little ideas,
little bets, and just see kind of what happens. And I've learned a lot. Like, for example, this one investment I made, it was a pretty big check for me, and I don't know if I'll ever get my money out. It was a bet, right? And I was talking to this other guy that does real estate investments. Basically, they help set up like palliative care homes and group homes and things like that. And they basically get their initial investment back within 2 years. So if they're deploying, let's say, $100,000, within 2 years, they're aiming to get that initial investment back to pay them back for their, you know, what they put in. And then it just makes cash after that. Where a lot of angel investing is, it's like you deploy capital and then you're just like waiting and waiting and waiting and hoping that there's some sort of liquidity event. And so I've started thinking about that as well. Like the risks of investing in software companies is actually quite high. And even like RevGems was a great idea, great team, and it just didn't work out. That happens.
It's like I've sort of thought about this as like someday if I get to a point where I just have like a lot of profit and savings kind of built up, and I'm at a point in my life where I just want to be a little bit more hands off and invest instead of build stuff. I don't know that that's actually a goal of mine. I know it is for a lot of people in our industry. They sort of graduate up to that like investor class sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel, from what I observe from friends and stuff, it's like there's like some people who want to be a little bit more active, meaning like angel invest in like 5-10 different companies and like be in on the investor updates and offer advice and strategy and stuff, and like and maybe have like a whole thought out like thesis of like these are the types of companies I invest in, right? And then there's like some that are a little bit more passive, like invest in a fund, invest in maybe a couple different funds, and let the funds handle and you know spread out, and like they handle the vetting and thesis and all that. It's interesting.
I mean, I will say, for me, what gives me energy here is I think I'm realizing there will be kind of 2 types of investment. One is this is just a great opportunity. You can put some money in and it can be cash flow positive within a couple years or 5 years or whatever. Those are interesting because it's like, why wouldn't you do that? What's more interesting to me personally is I've just, for example, always been into real estate. I've always loved the idea of owning like commercial spaces. I want to, like, if I could buy a warehouse or a workshop or I spend lots of my time just looking at real estate listings and buildings.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting to me. Also, whatever my family is kind of interested in is kind of in this space. So we've done some big kind of dive into the gaming industry with my one son and exploring that and funding some games, some game ideas and trying to get those into Steam. Those to me feel like, if I view kind of this bottom half is kind of the family business. And when I view my life in that respect, it's like, yeah, like how can we empower my kids and, just the family to explore some ideas and fund that R&D and those, trying to get something out into the world.
The real estate one is one that, Amy and I have been talking a lot about over the past years. Like we started to actively look around for Airbnb properties up here in the Northeast. It's something that we'd like to do at some point. I don't know when. Like we started really getting serious about it a few months ago, and then I just feel like the economy feels so unsure right now that it's like, I don't know. But that is something that's I like the idea of. Just I started to look into the Airbnb as business side of it. Like what sort of checks the boxes of there would be traffic in all seasons of the year. This can pay for itself and become profitable. And maybe it turns into a second or a third Airbnb,
Yeah. And I mean, there's even things like, my wife designed this studio that I'm in right now. She comes from a architecture design background. And then a few other people wanted to hire her to do that. And it's like, well, we can explore that opportunity under the family business. And, maybe one day, I don't think we'll actually do this, but maybe one day we'll find a perfect building and we'll be like, you know what? It would be fun to just buy this building and turn it into podcast studios you can rent. So let's do that. So this
leads right into Transistor.
It leads right into Transistor. Yeah. So this is kind of like, I've always liked having a personal, even when I was working full time, I had a corporation that I maintained that I could do side projects under. And for me, that's kind of this section here this is to make some small bets, to invest in, ideas that family and friends might have, and also hopefully pursue some really good investment opportunities when they come around. So having some liquidity to invest in good opportunities when they come.
Love it. I feel like you have a really healthy mix of everything here,
This is kind of the dream, is once you get a financial engine that's really going, you can start to, I think if Transistor wasn't working, I wouldn't be investing in the open standards project, really. It'd just be too much. And when Transistor first started, what was funding it was MegaMaker. MegaMaker, I'm sure, and Courses was still bringing in just a passive, probably.
And you guys are 100% bootstrapped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if it wasn't for that, John was still working full time, but I was able to dedicate so much time to Transistor because I still had this kind of passive money coming in through MegaMaker and Courses.
That is the key, man. That is the key, obviously, to bootstrapping and really making the transition from not having a SaaS or a sustainable, growable asset type business.
Yeah.
It's just how are you going to figure out the runway thing? And, it's also the thing where partners, I've always ended up being solo. I came really, really close to partnering with a few people over the years.
Yeah.
And always the hardest thing with that is not the not the split of skill sets, not even the personal chemistry. There have been a few people who I really personally wanted to partner with. I think we both did, but it's the stage of life or stage of career or financial situation.
Oh my gosh. I think that is worth even zooming in on a bit.
Yeah.
I think, especially now that I've started investing in different companies or exploring the idea of investing in companies, it's so apparent that the stage of life piece, but also just, well, stage of life has a lot to do with it, but
I think, I mean, definitely if you're 15, 20 years apart in age, you're definitely going to have like life stage differences with like kids or no kids. But I'm talking more about like financial situations. Like
financial,
like, and I've been on both sides of it. There were times where I sort of came to the table as like, I have time freedom because I have this other business that throws off cash, so I could really invest like full time in this.
Yeah.
And the other person didn't. And then I've also been on the flip side where it was like, well, I kind of have to split my time here, and maybe that person has like a big payday happening, or it's just really difficult because then like no matter how much you want to make it work, how do you like account for it? How do you like split the equity, like who's bringing this to the table if like this person's only working half time versus full time, and like it's tough,
Yeah, and I think that willingness and ability to commit is so underrated. This is I think what ends up killing a lot of partnerships is if you're not kind of equally committed, and if you don't have an equal ability to act on that commitment, it's just, and I've always kind of been like, if I'm committed to something, I like this podcast standards project is a good example. Once I committed, it's like I am dedicating serious energy and bandwidth to that thing. But not everybody's like that. And some people get more stressed out, for example. Some people,
especially if it's like a side project for most of the people in it, right? Like, it's like, how do people think of side projects? Is it like something that you touch once every 3 months, or is it something like once a week?
Yeah, and here's the other interesting thing is, so my son, who we're exploring video game ideas with, he started, I encouraged him to start doing these game jams because it's just a quick way to build something and get it out. And so he would put together a team, and he's just realized this, he's done this now 3 or 4 times and different teams, and he's just like, he has this high threshold for like, we're going to get this done. Like, I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to make sure this gets shipped. Not everybody has that desire or that bandwidth. And it's what the ideal is to find 2 people, 2 partners that are kind of equal in that, like they both have equal desire to make it happen, equal bandwidth, equal grit. Like you'll never be super equal, but I think that's the hard part about it. It's just so easy to get.
A few years back when I was like actively sort of seeking a partner for a business, and I came pretty close with a few people, it was like, you're basically looking for someone who recently exited a business, or has a super profitable passive income stream from some other business, and both of those are pretty rare. And even if you find like there are a lot of people that we know who have exited, but it's the timing of it, right? Like, okay, maybe you've exited, but you haven't decided on what your next chapter is going to be yet. Like that's a very small window to try to align with someone on,
and if you're bootstrapping it, it's just going to be, there's going to be a period of time that you are going to need incredible resilience, because like when John and I weren't getting paid, we're building Transistor and there's no money coming into our pockets. Like money was coming into Transistor fairly early, but it wasn't until,
I think like this is one of those things that I just think that there is a hunger that you have to have.
Yes.
And I feel like you and me and most people we know, like especially early in our career path, like that was always the difference. Like when I was young, like in my 20s, I also came close to partnering with a few people on some new ideas. This was before I did like anything. Right? I was just a freelancer. I was willing to work nights and weekends all week, like for free, just like let's do this WordPress theme business. Let's do this, let's do that. Right? Like and like, it was really, really difficult to find someone who was willing to partner with me, who was like not willing to just give up. Like, they would only work on like paid hourly rate projects. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do those things here and there. I'll pay the bills, but like, let's make something happen here. You know?
Not everybody has this DNA.
At some point, and it's like sort of a constant that I've seen with most people who've made the jump. It's like, at some point you have to be willing to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
And put in a lot of sweat for free.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's kind of like,
and it's difficult to wrap your head around that when you're used to getting paid well. Right.
Yes. And it's also hard to wrap your head around it if you don't innately have that desire, that burning hunger that you can't explain. Like, where does it come from? Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think we talked about this on the show. Someone asked him, like, man, how do you get to the gym every day? That must take such discipline. And he's like, no, I'm addicted. Like, I have to go. It's just inside of me. This isn't like some disciplined thing that I have to force myself to do. It's like, there's something compelling me inside of me. And that not everybody, I've realized, not everybody has this. Like, for me,
it's a blessing and a curse sometimes. It's like, I'll talk to people, they're like, I don't know how you work at home all day. I would never have the motivation. I'm like, my problem is I can't stop working. You know, like, this
is the curse. The curse is, and it's especially hard, I think, on marriages and family relationships, is people like us, it is always going to be a challenge for us to shut our brains off, to stop. Like, my most productive time, and it sucks so bad, is around 4:30 p.m. on a Friday. I just get this massive burst of energy. And I could go for another 6 hours on a Friday. Well, that's terrible timing for, so I've had to pull back on a lot of that. But it is a tremendous gift, and it is a tremendous curse that you're just being propelled all the time to go after stuff like this. And I'll
tell you what,
realizing not everyone has it is interesting.
I don't want to sort of open up a whole other topic here. This could get into next week, but like, one thing I'm noticing, because I'm thinking a lot about this right now, this week in my world, as we're talking about like our matrix, the shovels, where are we investing, where are we getting the revenue from? I think at this age also, with between age and family and responsibilities and safety, I'm just noticing now that I have a different calculus on that now than I did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I just flat out, I could just look back at some of the decisions that I was making around how I spend my time and investing my time.
Yeah.
That I was much more, I guess, I'm more risk averse now, I think.
Yes.
I mean, there's always a sense of risk averse, but like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, there are things right now where I literally have opportunities in my inbox for like consulting engagements, or, like doing things that I don't necessarily want to be my top priority right now. Like, my top priority is building builder methods.
Yeah.
Like, that's the business that's where all my shovels are. That's where all the batteries are. Like, that's where I see the vision for where I want to be spending. I also happen to think that there is a big time sensitive opportunity with that, with like catching this wave and getting on it.
Yeah.
And so that is where I'm spending most of my time. So I'm literally now deciding, like, all right, like, which of these things am I just going to say no to? Like,
yeah,
because it's literally the choice between, like, that thing could pay for like 3 months of living expenses.
Yeah.
And it's like, but is that a second or third thing that I want in my inbox every day for the next 3 months?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
I mean, this is, I think, why that bucket, putting your projects into buckets is so interesting, because it is kind of like that, especially depending on the stage. Like, when you've got a lot of shovels in the ground and you're doing all this foundational groundbreaking work, it's like, what's going to fund all of this groundwork? Like, what's going to fund breaking ground?
And I guess when I say it, I like the risk averse thing is that, like, I'm actually covered now for, like, I have a level of comfort now.
Yeah.
I don't need the extra project.
Yeah.
I don't need the extra thing or the extra a little bit more cash from this or that. Like, I don't actually need it, but there's a sense of like, I should grab it if I have it.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case, just in case this new thing doesn't pan out. Like,
yeah.
But like 20 years ago, I would have been like, screw that. I'm going to do, like.
Well, and I'm interested to see, like, because now that my kids are going to college, it is still expensive because I'm helping them out financially while they're in college. It'll be interesting to see as my kids transition into true independence, where they've found a job, hopefully, in this economy, where they've beaten out all the AIs, hopefully, in this economy, where they've been able to find housing, hopefully, in this economy. Eventually, my financial burdens, which have been really high for a long time, are going to maybe lessen. And then it'll be like, oh, interesting. I wonder what that does to my overall stress and that kind of baseline anxiety you're feeling when you're running your own business, which is, these are my costs. And
yeah,
I remember you actually, I was looking at my 2016 review, and you had this blog post that was like pretty kind of fundamental for my thinking, which was like, I was just reviewing my revenue. And I think that year I'd made, I don't know what it was, 144,000. And that was gross. But I was reading this blog post you'd written, and you're like, a lot of my thinking at the time was like, oh, I'm just replacing my salary. So it's just like, I just need to make, at the time, maybe I was making 100 grand. So I was like, I just need to replace that 100 grand and then I'll be fine. It's like, no, it's like, first of all, I when I actually calculated how expensive it is to have 4 kids in British Columbia, it's insane when you actually run the numbers. Yeah. And you need to go beyond just like, if you want to pay yourself 100,000, you probably need to be grossing quite a bit more than that. And it changes the calculus for everything when you're running your own business, especially if you have kids. It's just,
yeah, totally.
It's, yeah.
That's the thing. That is also the toughest thing about bootstrapping a new business, especially a SaaS. Like even if it's like a B2B SaaS and it's like a couple $100 a month per customer.
Yeah.
Like still like you're nowhere near viability until you have like 100+ customers, and that takes months, if not years.
Yeah. Maybe let's end on this one tweet here that I just think it's interesting. I think we close on it is, just encouraging. I mean, this was encouraging to me because I think a lot of this AI chat and economy chat kind of gets me down sometimes. And, I've had friends who are having a hard time finding work, and, it just feels like we're in this weird stage where nobody really knows what's happening. Is there still opportunities in independent SaaS? And this tweet from Kyle Nolan was just encouraging. He has this little product called Projection Lab, which it's a B2C product and gives you kind of projections on your personal finances. So like how, your net worth, if we could project out, it can show you what your net worth will be in 5 or 10 or 20 years. And no AI hype, no VC money, just 4 years of hard work building good software to solve a real problem we had ourselves. Now, of course, it's not that easy, but I think the story here is still encouraging that he was able to reach $1 million in annual recurring revenue, which is such a great accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that hockey stick. Obviously, they figured something out around 2 years in, 2.5 years in.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So it started around April 2021. And then if you look, it was not really till April 2023 that it starts growing. And yeah, then it's quite sharp from there.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't read this whole blog post, but yeah, I mean, I think You know, again, I feel like every person, every company is going to figure out what is their strength or their unique unfair advantage that they can take advantage of. It takes a little while to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And
I also think the thing that Kyle did well is he observed people in motion. So there is a class of the economy that's doing very well right now. It's basically families that make more than $250,000 a year are doing very well. So what's a B2C product that makes perfect sense? Well, let's give them something to manage all their finances, manage their investments, and project out how much money they'll have in 5 or 10 years. And, you know, this is something, as soon as you have some financial assets, you start thinking about this. And I think he just observed that this was a thing that people were thinking about and built a product that he wanted to use for himself. And, you know, maybe he just wanted to use it for himself and he just lucked into there being existing demand.
It's been interesting to watch what Josh Pigford has been doing with Maybe, and it's gone through so many different pivots
over the last couple
of years. Still going, and recently he said they're going for like their next pivot and focus. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it sounds like it's sort of in line with I think it might be like an AI version of financial projection. I think.
Oh, interesting.
At least that's the gist I got from his tweets on it. But
I mean, this is a pretty simple product. I don't think there's any AI in it. I think it's just like...
It's basically a spreadsheet in a SaaS, right?
Yeah, it's just a spreadsheet in a SaaS, basically. And again, sometimes people are just in motion going, like I wish there was something pre-built that I could just slot in my numbers and I could just... It was like, there's another one that I use called Kubera or something that I heard about on Money Lab one time. It was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. Just something to manage all my different investments. So yeah, congrats to Kyle Nolan on that. And we'll link all of that up in the show notes.
You know, this is probably going to just take up too much time, but the other tweet that I thought was really worth a read, and maybe you agree with it or don't agree with it, but I just think that everything that Andrew Wilkinson talks about or does is worth at least paying attention to.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Andrew Wilkinson, he's the founder of Tiny. They're sort of like this investment fund. It's an incredible story. He actually has a new book out this year about his story with it. Like he's basically a billionaire at this point, bootstrapped and built this whole holding company, built investment business. But he has a really long post on Twitter talking about like, I mean, it's look like this wave of AI. It's like the opposite of what you're talking about with this B2B. Like, it's just like the wave of AI is going to change everything. It's one of the most convincing and sort of like eye-opening, painting the picture of what the next 3 to 5 years could actually look like.
Yeah.
There are like second and third effects here that it gets into that are really worth considering. Like what happens if I wish I had like more time and prep to get into it on air, but like it's just a really good read. We should link up to it.
Yeah, we're gonna link to this. I would love for people to read it and then reply with their thoughts. Get a hold of us with what you think, because I remember reading through it. I saw it as well, and I was like, I got some thoughts on this. I want to push back on this. So, well, we have a topic for next week. If we'll put that tweet in the show notes, and then next week we'll talk about it.
That's everybody's homework.
That's everybody's homework. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
All right, later, folks.